Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to another video on the channel. So it's the Game Week 11 preview, the week before the international break, and we're going to take a look at the mini leagues, who is leading and who got manager of the week, as well as how my own team did in Game Week 10. Then I'll talk captaincy options, as well as my transfer thoughts moving forward. There's no charts in this one because I do like to have a video each week where I just have a bit of discussion around FPL, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. And if you like the channel, like the video, please do consider subscribing. The support has been amazing and I really do appreciate it. So let's take a look at Manager of the Week, and shout out to John, who got 95 points with no chip active, which any time in a single game week where you can get close to 100 points, whether that's with a chip or not, is pretty phenomenal, really. So to do it without a chip is just amazing. And it saw him go from about 3.3 million to just inside the top 2 million. Now, there was someone called Richard in our mini league who did get 96 points but took a -4 hit. So, unfortunately for him, it just takes him just below that manager of the week status, but still, fantastic score all round. Now, for John, he did score really consistently throughout his team. Now, the forwards all returned, and so did the midfielders, apart from Semenyo. And then even in defence, there's a lot of clean sheets knocking about. He did it with no Gabriel as well, which just goes to show that you don't need the most popular players to score well in a given game week if you can cover their points elsewhere. So the overall leader has stayed the same once again. Mark, congratulations, 87 points. Again, a really good score with no chip active, and it's taken him inside the top 10k. And the mini league is starting to spread out a little bit. There is that 20-point gap at the top. Nothing major, of course, but nice if you're top to have a 20-point separation between you and the next person. He does have Gabriel in his team as well as Raya on the double up and the triple Crystal Palace throughout. Didn't do it really this week, although you could say a clean sheet and a Mateta goal with bonus points is pretty good, but you may be hoping for a bit more for Munoz and Sarr as the season goes on. Starting Caicedo was a great shout for 10 points, and having João Pedro, Mateta, and Haaland just seems to be a pretty popular pick right now as a combination, or at least it was this week if you ended up doing well. So into my team, and I scored 77 points, which is pretty good, to be honest. Not a bad score at all. And I did have another green arrow, taking me from about 184k to about 170k, and about a 15,000 place green arrow, which is awesome. Anytime you're sort of in the top 200k and you're getting green arrows, doesn't really matter how big it is because there's not the scope to get, an extra million places up your ranks because it's just not possible. So I'll take a green arrow, a game week rank of about 2.5 million, which is good consistently. Like whenever you can get that sort of overall game week rank, I think is really good no matter where you are in FPL, you'll stay there or thereabouts. So how am I doing it? Well, have Raya in goal, obviously, and 6 points is fantastic for Raya. Again, it's just what I expect. Not trying to get greedy by wanting save points as well. He's got 4 clean sheets in a row, I think, now, so I will just take those 6 points every week. Into defence, and I do have Gabriel getting those 12 points. He's been awesome for me. I think I've had him since I had a wild card in about game week 5. So he's really been scoring consistently, as has Calafiori. And Calafiori is so attacking. I am amazed that he's not got attacking returns in the last, well, a lot of game weeks since I've owned him. He's not got an attacking return because he is pretty much in the box, not only in set pieces, but in open play as well. He was essentially in that first half lining up with Gyökeres up front at times. So hopefully soon he will get an attacking return. It'll probably be when Arsenal don't keep a clean sheet, but that'll be quite good because I'll be getting his difference points instead. So into midfield, and not a lot to write home about here. Everybody blanking. And Caicedo on the bench. And it is something I've discussed previously about my team in the fact that there is benching headaches there. And maybe I just start Caicedo because even if he just gets defensive contributions, which does happen more often than not, that's still 4 points. And that's more points than any of my midfielders scored today or this week. So really, I should be ignoring the pricing and just starting Caicedo because then if he does get an attacking return, you're on for a big score. If I had him instead of like a Kudus, I'd be on 86 points, and it would be an even better green arrow, but there's always going to be issues with your team. Up front, I did have the popular combination that we've seen in two teams already, João Pedro, Mateta and Haaland. I already had Mateta, so I didn't need to sell João Pedro to get him. I also thought the fixtures looked really good. And now you can see a lot of people making videos talking, last week it was sell João Pedro to Mateta, and now it's getting João Pedro. And, you've just got to be calm and consistent, I think, with your team. You don't need to make these mad decisions. And if you can look in the future, like I tried to do by getting Mateta in Evan Nielsen previously, I think then that sorts out your issues over the next few game weeks and you can make a bit more, considered and calm decisions. So really happy with my rank. Hopefully can keep it going. I'm only 2 points off 150k, so it really does go to show how close it all is. And I'm very aware that it could all change in a heartbeat. So I'm absolutely enjoying being a good rank right now. So let's take a look at the captaincy options and the fixtures. And Haaland is top again. Again, you don't need to overcomplicate it. I'm pretty sure I'll be captaining Haaland. There's not much of a captaincy discussion right now, which I know some people aren't a massive fan of. But I don't know, I think it kind of plays into your detail selections with the rest of your team because captaincy is such a big part of FPL. If you can get the right captain every week, it does just give you that solid score. Now, that's less of an issue when everyone's captaining Haaland, but then that filters down into the rest of your squad. And can you have those little picks that are going to give you the edge? Other than Haaland, just don't see it. Like you could captain Mateta at home to Brighton. I think that is a good pick if you don't own Haaland. But I don't know why you would risk it, especially if Haaland is scoring well. A lot of people kept in Gabriel on Saturday, and Gabriel did do well, got 12 points. Haaland got 13, and it was still better. But what if Gabriel had conceded? And then everybody, the masses of people captaining Haaland, would really damage your rank. So there is, of course, a chance that you pick a better captain. I just think it's too risky, and I just wouldn't go for it right now. So into my team for game week 11, and Raya is obviously going to start in goal. And I'm not necessarily getting greedy with thinking of swapping a different goalkeeper because I do have three free transfers in the bank. It's kind of just an opportunity to free up some funds by maybe selling Raya. The fixtures getting a little bit tougher. Nothing crazy that I would concern me. I think if I swapped into a Sanchez from Chelsea, I know I'd lose probably 6 points or 4 point difference more often than not. But it would give me that extra million when I'm looking to upgrade elsewhere in my team, which I'll talk about in a second. Now, it's definitely not an emergency sell. Of course, I'm more than happy with Raya, but it is a reasonable shout to sort of look at your team and think, where can I free up some transfer budget from? So into defence, and the same thing sort of for James Tarkowski. Not getting DEFCON a lot at the moment, and I do think he's someone who could be sold for someone cheaper. There are a lot of good options. There's even like Munoz from Crystal Palace that I could afford still at the moment. And whilst Tarkowski got a good start, he wasn't going to get defensive contributions every week. The fixtures get a little tougher as well, which might actually help defensive contributions because the other teams will be attacking more. So again, not desperate to sell, but if I did want a, a bit of extra transfer funds somewhere, I could sell him to a 4.5, ish, between 4.5 and 5 million defender. And then I could always just start Senesi instead, or go with a fallback, and even Mukiele for when he has some good fixtures again. So into midfield, and Kudus is the player that is a priority sell for me. Again, I don't think I need to do it this week. Man United at home is not a bad fixture from an attacking point of view, but Spurs just aren't looking great going forwards at the moment. I can also just bench him for Caicedo, which I think I will do. I think Caicedo is someone who will probably be in my team for the rest of the season, really, because he's cheap enough just to last. And players like Enzo and Kudus, probably Mbumo, when he goes for African Cup of Nations, will all, go before him. So Caicedo in for Kudus is the option. I would really like to get in Cody Gakpo if I had the money or if they were the same price. I would, in a heartbeat this week, do kudos to Gakpo swap, even though Liverpool play Man City, just because of the good fixtures moving forward. And I think with Salah going to the African Cup of Nations in a few weeks, Gakpo's minutes are just really secure. So really, what I'll be looking to doing is downgrading either Tarkowski, maybe even an Enzo Fernandez in a few game weeks and then upgrading Gakpo. Chelsea have those two great fixtures. I think it's Wolves and Burnley coming up in the next two. So it doesn't make any sense to sell a Chelsea player right now. But in a couple of game weeks, that could be the case. So up front, I do have, Mateta, Haaland, and João Pedro. And again, João Pedro is someone where if I was looking at selling someone to get some money, he'd be great. Could downgrade him to Thiago or could just go all the way to someone like a Mark Gui and just have him on my bench. But I do like my squad as it stands right now. And Chelsea's fixtures, like we say, do look really good. Wolves, Burnley, and Leeds in the next four. And then you've got Bournemouth and Everton. Well, they can both concede goals. The only real issue there is Arsenal, but you're going to have a tough fixture in any team for sitting within a 6 game week span. So I'm planning on rolling the transfers this game week. I do actually have three, and the team value is incredible. I don't think I've ever had this higher team value in any stage of any season, let alone after 10 game weeks in a season. So 102.8 million team value. Zero point 0.3 in the bank. I'm not too sure what I'm going to do with it right now, but with the international break being next week or after game week 11, kind of makes sense just to roll if I'm happy with my team. And then I'll have 2 weeks with 4 free transfers. Whereas if I made a couple of transfers now and then there's risk of those players getting injured, then it's a bit of a waste. Now, of course, if I thought there was huge upside for those transfers in this game week, I'd take the risk. I'm not saying don't make any transfers this game week, but I think you just have to look the medium term here and what you can do if you roll the transfers over the international break. So the strengths of my team are that it's a safe team. So if my players do bad, because they're so highly owned, I'm not going to drop down in ranks all of a sudden. I feel quite secure in my rank. It would be the players in the rest of FPL. They're not necessarily really high owned that if they scored and my players didn't, I drop down a million places in a week or in a couple of weeks. I feel fairly secure with the team, and I've got in players that other people are still trying to get in. And they do have good fixtures. Even a team like Chelsea with a João Pedro, say, they do have good fixtures coming up, and the Palace fixtures look good as well as the fixtures for, say, Arsenal defence. The weaknesses for me is the benching headaches continue. I've benched Caicedo once again. He gets 10 points. I've been doing that with different players in the weeks that have just gone. And I think that is an issue when you have got a good team. But then you also have to remember that there's players in FPL that score you points all the time or score other people points all the time. Look at Xhaka yesterday in the Sunderland Everton game. I don't own him because he's not sat there on my bench staring me in the face. I don't agonize about not owning a player who scored points. So you just kind of have to put it in that sort of context. And it is a risk with having a good squad. I'm not concerned about the over reliance on Arsenal defenders, but it is something I'm aware of that if Arsenal hadn't kept a clean sheet in some of the last 4 game weeks, that probably would be looking at a 12-point drop, maybe even more to what I have had. Now, of course, they have got points, and that's why I got them in. But I would like some more returns from the midfield a bit more consistently at the moment, just to kind of balance out those defender points. Because one time soon, Arsenal won't keep a clean sheet. And then what would my overall score be looking at? So it's not something that I'm worried about, but I think it is something where I do think, oh, I'm really glad Arsenal have kept a clean sheet again, for the last few weeks. So let me know what you think about your team. Let me know what you think about any transfers that you're looking at making. What rank are you? How are you feeling about this season? Always great to chat FPL. Go check out my latest wildcard video as well, where I do use the charts and data to try and justify my wildcard options. And I will see you in the next one.